What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. As always, I'm AJ Malillo,
And I'm Steven Rambola.
and you can subscribe to us over on Jersey First TV on YouTube. You can click that notification bell. You could check us out along with the Nader Narrative with Elizabeth and Real Talk with Fernando. And you can check us on jerseyfirst.org where you could sign up for our newsletter to get more information and sign the pledge of making New Jersey a better place. And Stephen, right now, New Jersey, along with most of the East Coast and up into Canada, is like an apocalyptic wasteland at the time we are recording this because of
Correct.
the wildfires. How are you holding up over there on the shore?
I am holding up poorly. I have chronic asthma, seasonal allergies like you would not believe. And unbeknownst to me, I spent the yesterday, Tuesday, in New York City, at the time that I was there, I was obviously not on my phone, checking up, keeping up on things. Come to find out, I spent about 7 hours walking around the city with the highest levels of pollution in the air on the entire North American continent. So that was a relief when I got home for sure. And then to wake up to the smell of a bonfire looming somewhere in the distance, again, unbeknownst to me that it was in Canada, was a little suspicious. So I've been quite nasally. I step outside and I cough. It's a great time. I have a friend who is a nurse in the ER, and she said that there's actually a lot of people, at least in Tom's River, going to community medical center over breathing issues with this stuff. So it is like no joke. The boardwalk was functionally shut down. They closed state offices at 3:30 in the afternoon today. It was like this weird little air contagion. I got like a brief moment where I was like, "Am I going to be in lockdown again?" There's no way.
Yeah, no. It's certainly rough out there. I have a rockin' headache. I famously never got the air conditioning fixed in my car
Mm.
for about probably over a year now. And so it's been rough because I can't drive with my windows down. And I've been like circulating air just so that I have like airflow, but gave me like a rockin' headache in there. But I'm with you. You step outside, you start coughing. I also have asthma, so I understand the
Yep.
pain, and I'm sure most people do. I mean, you were in New York City yesterday, and I'm pretty sure I read that if you were outside for an hour, it's like you smoked like 3 cigarettes in that
No
time.
way.
So 7 hours, you smoked over what, like 21 cigarettes,
Yeah,
just walking around outside.
I burned 2 packs yesterday. That's crazy. At least I got my
So
cardio in. It was a lot of walking.
yeah, well, that's good. I mean, I guess 21 cigarettes and a good cardio day.
Really putting the heart to work, huh?
Hard to work. Yeah, good thing you're young and spry. You'll be okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
I hope
Whew.
hopefully by the time this comes out on Saturday, the smoke has cleared literally and figuratively, and we've moved on. But it's rough out there, at least as of right now.
Well, and I think worth mentioning too, like as much of this is from Alberta, Canada, right? There's these bless you tremendous
Thank
wildfires.
you.
I think
Nova
the
Scotia,
number was
yes.
something like like 1 million acres, like an insane wildfire. But there was also a fire last night. We're recording this on the 7th, so June 6th. That was about 70 acres out in Jackson. So out here, we are like double whammied. It's like big fire really far away, and then also big fire really close. So
Yeah.
it's like a double whammy for the people, at least in this part of Jersey, Jackson, and I would imagine, southeast of there with the way the wind was blowing. So all of it's got to clear. We got to clear the Jackson fire. We got to clear the Canada fire. I feel like I'm in California right now. I'm like done with fire, so I want nothing to
I'll
do
tell
with
you what.
fire.
If it wasn't attached to like terrible um breathing conditions, I walked outside today and people thought I was crazy because I was like, this is my favorite scent in the world. Like I don't think that there is a better smell than like a bonfire outside in the summertime, just like that scent in the air. Now, I understand like to breathe it in is bad for you and like it's dangerous. But if it could just smell like this, all of the time. I would be in bliss because it's my favorite scent ever.
So what I'm hearing is that somebody needs to send AJ a bonfire scented candle
Well, it
to
just
take
doesn't.
care of all.
It just doesn't do it the same.
It is and you know what's like crazy about that too is the smell. I don't know. I had this weird moment where I walked out and I was like, I'm smelling a fire that is burning in another country right now.
That's
Like to
true.
put into scale how tremendous what's going on in Canada must be. So I don't know. And it's bizarre to me. I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? We're in, the United States. So US news is covering it a little bit differently. But until this smoke was like literally knocking on my front door this morning, I had no idea that there was a million acres of forest burning in Canada. So I want to say just briefly, like shout out to all the men and women that are fighting that fire, forest fire fighting. Wow, that is a tongue twister. Is so dangerous. So hopefully they are all being safe, trying to get it as under control as you can. But it's hard to even conceptualize a million acres. But I guess when you live however many thousand miles away and you can smell it, puts into some sort of scale how big and serious of an issue this is. So hope everything is well in the Great White North over there, Great Red North right now, I guess. Uh, and they get it under control because as much of like an inconvenience as it is for us to be like stinky and like it's a big problem up there. So hopefully they're taking care of it safely and efficiently and getting it under control.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But Steve, look, we have a couple stories to talk about today, and there was a big primary election this past week, and a big upset in
Yeah,
Tom's River, which we talked a little
yeah.
bit about. So, Steve, let's break down some numbers. What do you say?
I think it's a great idea. And I think worth mentioning about this. So we can get into the numbers. And then I want to circle back to our story from last week where we talked about this county line on New Jersey ballots because everything that we had discussed about how this county line sort of gives preference to the people who have the support of the county political party organization are put first. It's normally really hard to beat these people. Typically, you're incumbents, and that was at least in Tom's River put to rest because the incumbent mayor Maurice Mo Hill lost, I would say, quite embarrassingly for an incumbent to one Daniel Roderick. Daniel Roderick swept with 45.79% of the votes coming in out of this primary in the Toms River Ocean County Toms River mayoral's race, and that is just about it's more than double what the current mayor got in terms of votes.
And along with that, I would note that he didn't even get second place in this election. He finished third in the mayoral race, the
Yeah.
incumbent. So it was really just like a shocking defeat and upset. But really, what this came down to, the biggest piece of this was talking about the downtown Toms River area. And if you're from the area, you might know there was an old red carpet in there for many years, and it was an eyesore, and it was just like not the best of locations to put it mildly. A lot of crime was going on. And so a few years back, the township bought it, and now there's been fights over what to do with it. And Mo Hill and his sect of the Republican Party wanted to put an apartment building there, 2-story, 10-unit uh, apartment building, if I'm correct. Or I'm sorry, two 10-story apartment units. But that has so to speak caused a riff in the party as Roderick thinks that's a bad idea, and that's pretty much the big thing that he ran on. And instead, he's trying to make it an extension of Huddy Park right there on the river, and he wants to put a pier out there, and he wants to sell some permits so that they could start selling liquor over there and make it more of like a bar downtown, hang out on the pier for the summertime. And I think it's an interesting idea. It'll bring some revenue, and we'll see if that plan pans out, so to speak. but that's pretty much what this came down to. I would say that's probably the biggest sort of argument on the Republican side of the aisle for this mayoral election is what to do with this riverfront area and
Yeah,
development in
and
general.
yes, development in general, I was going to say, and that's kind of what it comes down to. And there was an interesting quote in this article that I was reading from the Asbury Park Press, that I think just kind of, I don't know, there's a lot of accusations going on if you're, savvy in Tom's River politics about, what the term development's kind of a loaded term regionally down here. And the people who were running against Roderick, particularly Robert Bianchini, and the incumbent mayor Mo Hill, accused Roderick of running an anti-Semitic campaign because he had sent flyers out saying that he was in opposition to the Lakewood-style developments that Mo Hill and I guess Bianchini, due to his criticism, were in support of, which you had just detailed, which were these sort of dwellings as opposed to these community areas. And I just think it's an interesting shift to note because this is not Roderick's first bid for mayor. He faced the same criticisms last time that he ran
Which
when
was
Mo Hill beat him.
2019.
Yeah, when Mo Hill beat him. So I'm curious to see, and this marks, not only a shift in the party politics of the Republicans, but the attitudes of registered Republicans in Toms River. And if they see these sort of Lakewood style developments as this issue, and whether or not there's, any legitimate credibility to what these claims that Roderick's opponents are making about him, because it is contentious and it's hard to talk about, and you kind of have to, be particular and be specific about it. But to be blunt and to be frank, a lot of people think that Roderick ran a very anti-Semitic campaign and is on this push to keep the Hasidic Jewish community who, is in Lakewood out of Toms River. And it'll be interesting to shape up in a general election to see if the Democrat, I think his name's John Fury, takes that similar approach, sort of at Roderick and says, is this really why you're doing it? And maybe pushes hard on that, and to sort of get a feel for this community and what the general attitudes are. Because when it comes down to it, we can say it's about redeveloping Huddy Park and all these things, but this is what Roderick faced in 2019, was these claims of anti-Semitism. They threw it at him again this year, except this year he won, and now he is the Republican candidate for mayor of Toms River. So I think that there's a responsibility on the Republicans right now to clarify that message. And if you want to win votes, not that Toms River is necessarily a place where you need to swing people, because we are very reliably Republican, at least in these small county seats. There's got to be some clear messaging about what this means and where that support lies, and if it's really, when it comes down to it.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important thing to note, and I think that it is a difficult line to draw because to claim somebody is anti-Semitic obviously comes with a lot of baggage in that term, and a lot of it's a hateful thing if to falsely accuse somebody of anti-Semitism and for somebody to be anti-Semitic. Like, both of those things
Yes.
are damaging to reputations and are harmful and hateful. And I'll say this: I think that there has been an upswell of a lot of rhetoric, especially in the local politics of Toms River, that borderlines on anti-Semitic. I've seen it, I've heard it, and I know you have too, Stephen. So it's a dangerous line to draw. That being said, I kind of like the idea, just like prima facie, of like a nice little downtown Toms River area where you're walking the river, more than an apartment building. Like, I do. I think that makes for a nice community to live in, and more people to come into the community that don't live in the community and enjoy the community for the beautiful Toms River that it is on. And I would say that it's a consistent message through Roderick's campaign of focusing on more commercial development and more sort of things to do in Tom's River, as opposed to real estate, like residential development, which seems to be what other candidates were looking to do, like across the town. And now you could say that there's negative ulterior motives for that want in development. And I mean, I'm not going to crawl into a person's brain and tell you what they're
Yeah.
thinking, but it's not, it seems like the Republican Party has decided that they would rather Tom's River try and create more of this commercial development. For what reason that is there a possibility that it borders on a hateful reason? There's a possibility there. I'm not willing to directly level that allegation though, without more knowledge on directly, how this person feels about certain members of the community. But it's important to note, and it's an important criticism that he needs to address. And I think you're right. And I think he needs to get out in front of it and say, like, no, this has nothing to do with that community. In fact, I would love it if that community came and enjoyed the recreational activities that we are presenting. But if the motive is just we don't want them here, then that's a different story.
It's a completely different game, and it's just like you said, he has to get in front of it because this is a contentious election, and now, no matter how it goes, there's going to be a new person sitting as the mayor of Toms River, and the mayor of Toms River has some pretty powerful, like duties. They deal with the budget, they deal with appointing the heads of administrations in town, things that deal with zoning, development, where this money's going. So if Roderick's plan is true at heart and purely intentioned on making Toms River this really nice, fancy downtown, go out on a Saturday night with your friends place, and it doesn't come from, these alleged hateful origins, it's important that he gets out in front of it, because at the end of the day, when these decisions are made, when this budget is created, it's the mayor who sits at the helm of this and is, the real leader on this. And if it's predicated on hateful intention, that is a really bad look if he makes his way into the mayor's office come November. So he's got a lot of work to do, and I'm interested to see what the Democrat John Fury does. He ran unopposed, I believe, in the primary, so Democrats have had their guy, and in a town like this, it's really hard for a Democrat to even make a splash. But when you're facing a candidate with allegations of anti-Semitism, who knows? Maybe the Democrats can pull off an upset.
Yeah, he's definitely running an uphill race the whole time. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think that Roderick needs to get out ahead of it and really say, okay, now you're the Republican nominee. You can't sort of run away from these allegations anymore. You have to go head first into this and prove that the allegations are not true if they are in fact not true. But Steve, from local politics to national politics, really quick, let's talk a little bit about the state of our 2024 presidential election, as the Republican primary seems to, I can't even say taking shape. I guess it is taking shape, but it's becoming more of an amorphic blob because there's just more and more people coming in, and it's just becoming more and more spread out and chaotic. And to make matters so much more fun, and chaotic is, I think, the proper term for this individual, is former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, has officially launched his campaign for president, his second in as many terms, and or his second in as many consecutive terms, I should say. As he ran, oh wait, I'm sorry, he didn't run in 2020. He ran in 2016. It feels like yesterday.
Yeah, but, it does.
So his second in the past 3 terms, I should say. So Chris Christie's running again. You also had former Vice President Mike Pence officially announce his campaign. You have Ron DeSantis, obviously the governor of Florida, who announced his campaign. You got Vivek Ramaswamy for the Republican Party, who's running a little bit of that outsider billionaire lane. You have Nikki Haley, Tim Scott. You have Chris Sununu, who's the governor up in New Hampshire, and of course you have Donald J. Trump, the former president of the United States, and the clear frontrunner as of right now in this race. And let me just say this: you have all of these Republicans running in, and I think that it's clear. I don't think this makes me any sort of political savant to put this out there. The only way that Donald Trump is not the Republican nominee on the 2024 ticket is if all but one of these candidates drop out of the race. Which candidate that is, I quite frankly doesn't really matter. Likely Ron DeSantis is the front runner, so it makes the front runner out of the non-Donald Trump candidates, so it makes sense for the party or the rest of the party to rally around him. But if it's him or Haley or Scott or Sununu or Chris Christie or Mike Pence or whomever else, the only path that I can see Donald Trump not being the Republican nominee is if everybody drops out except for one, and they sort of do that Joe Biden strategy of coalescing behind them, and everybody kind of swallowing their pride and their ego in this matter. But you know what? When you get to national politics and when you get to presidential politics, Stephen, it's all about ego.
That's
and
all it is.
Nobody's willing to let that go away. So I'd love to hear your take on the state of this election as of right now, and we got a long way to go, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, we're way far out from this. I'll say this much: I think the Republicans have quite the challenge ahead. I think a lot of their candidates for regular middle of the road, sometimes lean left, sometimes lean right Americans are rather unsavory. It's pretty clear that unless you're a Republican, you probably are not a fan of Donald Trump. I would say the same goes for Ron DeSantis, especially with the way that things have been shaping up in Florida. There's been a tremendous it's almost like a campaign to bash Florida that's been happening for the past few months before he even dipped his feet in. And I think that was really well thought out and orchestrated by, big media to make sure that when he gets his feet in, he's really starting from a losing position. You have things coming out of Florida recently, like the Don't Say Gay bill, the issues with Disney and LGBTQ issues, and them pulling the plug on this tremendous economic investment that is all so conveniently happening as Ron DeSantis' name is coming up more and more as a candidate. So I'm not saying that there was some sort of conspiracy to put him, a peg down from where he should have started, because after COVID, Ron DeSantis was the guy. Everybody was like, Florida got it right. Florida did it. This guy protects our freedoms, our civil liberties. He understands. And now all of a sudden there's this big, media push that, DeSantis bad guy, he upset the mouse, and we like the mouse more than we like the governor. So, and then you look at a guy like Mike Pence, wholly attached to Donald Trump. He's doing a really good job at trying to separate himself from that image. I don't know if you saw what he said today during his press conference, but he had made this allegation, I'll say, about the former president that he claimed on the day that they were going to certify the election results, January 6th, that Donald Trump asked him to choose whether or not he said, in essence, he asked me to choose Donald Trump or the Constitution. He said, I'll choose the Constitution every time. I did it then, and I'll do it again. And, that's the person you want running for president. So, and then Chris Christie, it has his own host of issues that, people are going to love to bring up. And again, most recently, there was 2 senior officials from his administration who have been either indicted or charged on these corruption charges that stem from Bridgegate, which he was, sort of exonerated from, but still people close to him and his administration, and something that left a bad taste in the mouth of a lot of New Jerseyans as he left office. So some of these candidates have a lot of ground to make up.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's a great point. But then you also have candidates that I think are very palatable to the moderate person, and they're just not as palatable to the more conservative base of the Republican Party, which would be your Nikki Haley's, your Tim Scott's, your Vivek Ramaswamy's, which I think could gain a lot of traction in the middle ground, like you're talking about, and might be great general election candidates, but are going to have a very difficult time in the Republican primary. And you're right in what you say when it comes to the attacks on Ron DeSantis. And I just, what bothers me, Stephen, about it is that it's so obvious to me that basically, okay, let's put it this way. When George W. Bush ran in 2000 and 2004, they said he was an idiot. He was going to destroy our country. He was going to make this a terrible, awful, bad place. And then John McCain ran in 2008, and they said he was evil and he was racist and he was going to make America this really awful, really bad place. Now they'll say they like John McCain, but in 2008 they didn't. And in 2012, Mitt Romney ran, right? And what? Mitt Romney, to quote our president, was going to put y'all back in chains. He was this evil, brutal racist. He used to keep his dog on the roof of his car. He was a sexist. He hated women, kept women in binders. And now they tend to like Mitt Romney sometimes. And then in 2016, Donald Trump ran. And what was Donald Trump? Donald Trump was literally Hitler. He was a Nazi. He was the worst. He was a brutal, evil, racist, sexist, and a bigot. He then won the presidency. He was all of those things. 2020 happened. He was all of those things. And now Ron DeSantis runs, and he's worse than Donald Trump, Stephen. Not only is he an evil, racist, Nazi, bigot, bad guy, but he's better than Donald Trump. So that makes him worse because he can speak to the common folk better, or whatever their attack might be. And it doesn't matter, because here's the thing. Tim Scott could somehow win this election and be the Republican nominee for the president. And guess what? The media would say he's an evil, bigot, racist who hates women, and he's a race traitor, and he hates everybody, and he's the worst person to ever don a suit, and let alone run for president of the United States. It doesn't matter. They'd say he's worse than Donald Trump because he does it with some, and then they'd say something racist, like he's worse than Donald Trump because another person running for president, Larry Elder, when he ran for Canada, for the governor of California, they called him the black face of white supremacy, and I'm sure they'd say something like that about Tim Scott as well. My point is, it doesn't matter who runs for the Republican; they're going to be running against the same attacks that Donald Trump is going to be running against. Now, that being said, I think that the moderate vote, particularly the vote that lost Donald Trump the 2020 election, which is the moderate, middle of the road women and men who turned against Donald Trump from 2016 to 2020, right? That vote, that moderate, middle of the road, just kind of like, I just want my kids to go to school safely and, not have to turn on the news and be worried all of the time. And also, like, not pay a lot in taxes and live comfortably. That vote can be won by somebody who isn't Donald Trump. I think that we have our cake baked with Donald Trump. You like him or you don't. Your opinion's not going to sway or change or do anything like that. And the thing about the Republican Party right now, and the reason you have so many hats in the ring, is everybody thinks that they can sway that vote. Yep. It's not going to happen with 15 people running for president. Okay? You need to find one, and you need to find one soon. Because as early as we are, Iowa is in 9 months, 10 months from now, right? It's far less than a year away before the Iowa caucuses happen. And so what do we know? We know that the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire primaries are the biggest stepping stones before Super Tuesday in a primary election. Donald Trump is up big right now. That doesn't mean he has to be up big in those places. I think the Republicans need to do some soul searching, and they need to, everybody that's not Donald Trump, if they seriously don't want Donald Trump to be the nominee, has to get into a room together, put their egos at the door, and say, who's got the best shot at this?
I think you're right, and I just want to offer some perspective here. So we have this. This is from Real Clear Politics. This is polling data that came out. Their average for recently 5.8 to 5.22 right now. So this is, yeah, I don't know why Chris Christie's in this then, but either way, it
Well, he was
has
considering running, so some polls
Yeah,
might have
during
thrown
that.
him on.
Yeah. So they have, I'll start from the bottom here with 0.4 of the vote is Hutchinson, 0.5 of the vote is Elder. I imagine the gentleman you were mentioning earlier. And then we have Chris Christie with 1% of the vote. So Chris Christie, Youngkin, and Sunu. Apologize for not knowing
Sununu
names here.
is the governor of New Hampshire. Hutchinson was, I believe, the former governor of Arkansas.
Okay. So those guys are all polling at 1. At 1.6%, you have Tim Scott. 2.6%, you have Ramaswamy. 3.8%, you have Mike Pence. 4.4%, you have Nikki Haley. And then there is a tremendous jump to Ron DeSantis with 22.4% of the vote. And then an even bigger jump to Donald Trump, who right now is polling at 53.2%.
Right. So even if everybody else goes out, Donald Trump still has about 50% of the vote.
Yeah. And that scares me. But like you said, it is early on. And I feel like I've been saying this for so many years now, but this is going to be a pivotal moment for the Republican Party, right? Like now more than ever, like you said, the cake's kind of been baked with Donald Trump. You know what he can do. You know how he's going to do it. You know that he is the kind of guy that will, exist in the mud, drag you into the mud, and, drown you in mud in order to get what he wants done. And you either like it or you don't. And I agree with you. I think that the Republicans need to do some serious soul searching. They need to put their egos aside, and they need to rally against a candidate or rally for a candidate to go against Donald Trump. There is a clear fissure in the party and what the party values, what they want, and how they want to get it done. And if you can't get that together, the guy that's in the lead is going to continue to be in the lead, regardless of if you get your act together or not. So there is a timeline, there is pressure, and it has to happen soon.
And I think it's an important thing to note that Republican primaries, and I'm pretty sure, I don't think it's the same for all states, but there's some states that it's the same for the Democrats. But for Republican primaries, they're winner take all states. So that means
Yes.
like Donald Trump doesn't have to win 50% of the vote to take the state in a lot of Republican primaries. He needs to win 35% of the vote, especially if the rest are split between 15 candidates. And that's why it's so dangerous. And that's why he won in 2016, because Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and John Kasich split the vote the whole time.
All the way to the end.
So it's like, learn from your mistakes. If you don't want Donald Trump to be the presidential nominee for your party again, which seemingly they don't because so many people are running against him, then you can't make the same mistake twice.
But you can.
I mean, you can. I mean, I'm giving way too much credit and faith into politicians, which is a sad thing to say, but because we are choosing them to run our country. But I don't see how any political strategist tells somebody that it's a good idea to run for president right now. Unless they can somehow start dropping people out.
But this is what's so interesting to me. The last time that the field was this crowded, like you said, was 2016. Those drops didn't start happening until we had those sensational moments in the debates. And we are far off from any sort of debate. So right now, it's just these candidates.
And Donald Trump's not going to debate. He's already said it.
Yeah.
He's not going to debate. He's not going to get on that stage.
And, I have mixed feelings about that.
But that being said, you're right. Also, that's why I'm so confused as a political strategy idea from Trump, because that's when he's at his best. So, like, I see it being good and bad for him to not do the debates.
And then you put a guy like Chris Christie up there, and you and I talk about this moment all the time, but Chris Christie's a guy, when he's on. And I firmly believe that he is as good, and as savvy as Donald Trump, he's just not as I want to say funny, but like he's not as sensational, I guess is the term. Like Chris Christie is a very great debater. He does really well in that arena. I would say better than most expected him to in 2016, especially. And I don't see any of those candidates up there giving Chris Christie a tough run for his money, when he's on a debate stage. I think he's got, the prowess and the vocabulary and experience to, sort of pick apart any of those candidates. So I don't know. There is just so much ahead of us. I'm excited, and I just got to like quadruple down on it and say I hope that they get their act together and rally behind a single candidate to make sure that Donald Trump is not the nominee, because I cannot bear another rerun of what we had the last time. I can't do it. And I'm saying that on the belief that Joe Biden makes it to the general election and is fit to serve at that point, and fit to serve another 4 years after when he wins, which is just mind-boggling that that's what we're dealing with. But the candidates coming out on the Democratic side of the aisle, we were talking briefly before the show, like Robert Kennedy, listening to that man speak is almost as bad as listening to Joe Biden speak. And
okay, he has an actual reason for that, though. Like his voice was damaged, like in childhood, so he has an actual reason why his voice is kind of tough to listen to. It's not because he's not cognitively sharp.
Okay. Apologies to RFK. I was unaware of this. Point being, there's not any stellar candidates coming out for the Democrats. You have a Republican field that is locked, loaded, and it seems like they have one mission. Well, it seems like all of them but one have the same mission, which is make sure this guy doesn't get it. And then that guy has one mission, which is make sure none of them get it. But the Democrats are sitting here scrambling. And what boggles me is that they're the party right now that is in the executive. They are in control of the legislative branch. So why are we, well, it's a split house, but split Congress. We should be kind of digging into our talent that's operating really well right now, part of our big successes in government, and getting them on the stage, getting them ready, finding our people. But it just blows my mind that the news that I hear about Democrats is, again, like Joe Biden falling on stage and Dianne Feinstein being like way unhealthier than people were led to believe at the ripe young age of 90 years old.
I mean, John Fetterman also being much more unhealthy than people were led to believe, and he's a young man comparatively. I mean, look, I just don't think the Democratic bench is good, and I think that their best bet, believe it or not, like genuinely, is Joe Biden, and I think that that's kind of the scariest part. That being said, we're going to have to wrap up soon, but I'll leave it at this. I think you're right. I think that Chris Christie is the best Republican other than Donald Trump on the debate stage. But that being said, I'm not necessarily positive that he's the person that you rally around, because he does come in with a lot of baggage. I think you rally around someone that's got at least less baggage. That's why I think an idea of a Vivek Ramaswamy, who has a little bit more of like that outside appeal because he's not a politician, he is a tech guy, or you have your Tim Scott or your Nikki Haley, who are, while they're more career politicians, I wouldn't say they're coming in with a lot of baggage at all. I think that they have good name recognition, but bigger than that, they have good records. I think most people can look at their records and be like, okay, I might not agree with everything, but there's nothing that screams at you. It's like bad.
Yeah.
So I think you rally around one of them. I think Ron DeSantis, I don't know, he's polling really well, but I'm interested to see what he's like on a debate stage. I there's something about him that I feel like he's not going to be that great on the trail, especially on the debate stage. feel like he's someone that gets rattled. He's someone that Chris Christie takes down. You know.
Oh my God,
to him.
Chris Christie might be in the end, of the debate stage. But let me tell you something. He gets up there and he sees a weak, shaking man in Ron DeSantis, because we've seen all these clips coming out of DeSantis getting frazzled by reporters asking questions that he just like either doesn't want an answer or doesn't have a good answer to in that moment. And he does the like, well, I'm not going to take the time to explain that to you right now. Like, and gives these really unprofessional, very obviously flustered answers. And if there's one place that you don't want to do that, it is on the national debate stage when you are campaigning for president against some potential heavyweights in the Chris Christies. Let's say Donald Trump walks back on his word and shows up. You cannot do that in front of people like that, because they will take advantage of it. You will suffer and you'll look like a fool. And then boom, another ball drops and Donald Trump is one step closer to, being the candidate for the Republicans to take the White House in 2024. So
right,
we got a long time, but
we got a little bit of time, right? We got a little bit of time left, and it's interesting. We'll see how it pans out. And as much as I hate it, this is my favorite. My favorite time of year is primary time. I just think it's so interesting. I think it's interesting to see the people on the debate stage and how they really go about attacking each other, and also talking about the issues and seeing who's got ideas that can win the day. So we'll find out. We'll see. A lot more is going to shake loose in the coming months. So we will stay tuned here at Bridging the Gap. But Steve, I'll give you the last word, but it's about time to wrap up over here.
I just want to say, I think to your point, this is by far one of the most exciting periods of politics is the primary season. And I love seeing how vicious these people are on stage to one another. And then how when it becomes clear that there's somebody who's going to be the guy, all of a sudden the tone changes. I'll never forget when Kamala Harris had that moment on the debate stage where she looked at Joe Biden, and I'm pretty sure she called him a racist, like word for word, in so many words, right? And now all of a sudden she's sharing the White House with him, or
we did it, Joe.
Chris Christie. We did it. Or, Chris Christie, when he's on the debate stage in 2016, railing against Donald Trump, and then all of a sudden is taking these dinners with him very quietly, trying to become the Attorney General of the United States, right? So that's like another dichotomy that I think is so fun to watch and observe, is like, I'll compete at, if I'm on this debate stage, it's like, I'm going to compete against you. Like, my life depends on it. But when you beat me, I am also going to kiss your butt like my life depends on it, because gosh darn it, if I don't get something out of this, it was a waste of my time. And they're politicians. That's what they do.
That's right. But look, there's another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. As always, for Jersey First TV and Bridging the Gap, I'm AJ Malillo.
I'm Steven Ramola.
And I hope you have a great week, and we will talk to you all next week. Have a good one, everyone.